Ladies and gentlemen, recorded in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, it's time for Fight Night Picks with your host, Craig and Matt Allen.
And Matt, just like that, we're live. Look at that. I'm out here in the woods. There's a lot of people hitting up the chat over on the YouTubes, and they're saying, listen, good morning, everyone. Is it really about to start right now? Early today. Yeah. I mean, listen, we've got a wilderness episode. I'm out here camping this weekend, but listen, we got to give the people what they want, Matt. We got to be talking some fights, and we've got a big card coming up this weekend, eh?
The Korean Zombies fighting Dhiego. Like, it would be a disservice for us not to talk about it on this Saturday. And yeah, it's kind of weird. This is like a weird, like, ASMR in the wild version of Craig Allen. But no, this is going to be fun. It is one of those underrated cards today, too. I do feel like a lot of people have been saying that. Like, yeah, it lacks some of that overall star appeal that some Fight Night cards can have. But for the most part, there's quite a few fun fights on this card.
And we'll make this one pretty quick. I mean, obviously, I'm limited on battery life out here, and I did bring a bank, but I wasted it on my phone yesterday. So, Matt, we'll rip through the entire card, and let's start at, well, the bottom. I mean, Matt, we have Casey ONeill taking on Lara Procopio. I'm at for Casey ONeill. Looked great in her debut against, I would say, a tough out in Shayna Dobson, somebody that UFC fans know at 125 pounds. For Lara Procopio, obviously, the split decision loss to Carol Hossa in her debut. And then a big win over Molly McCann last time out. So as far as the pick's concerned, are you thinking of switching anything up here?
This is a really close fight. I think we talked about that at length throughout our original prediction video. For Casey ONeill, I really do think it comes down to her ability to offensive wrestle in this fight. But at the end of the day, I do have to go with Lara Procopio. I think this fight will be really close. And again, this is one of those fights where Lara could look really good for the first 2 rounds, and then Casey ONeill just makes it the difference in the third, and we sit here looking like idiots. But I still got to stick with my pick of Lara.
And I see a lot of people out there that are going with Casey ONeill. And if that's the way that you're thinking, then, far be it for me to tell you that you're wrong. But over there in the old chat, I mean, we've got Bilbo Bear saying, even though they bugging out in their off-grid cabin, they're giving us the picks, true legends. And we've got Voodoo saying, fingers crossed, no bear sneak attacks, Craig, LOL. So, yeah, I'm feeling the same way about the pick, not really changing anything here. I think Lara Procopio makes it interesting, especially with her striking, to kind of complement the wrestling as well as, the grappling that we know and love from her, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt and the like. So yeah, Matt, both of us going with Procopio in this one. We move into our next fight. We have Joaquim Silva taking on Ricky Glenn. Like I said, let us know in the comment section who you're going with in this fight, because it is a really tricky one. I mean, for Tricky Ricky, he's been away for a couple of years, obviously major hip surgery as well to go along with the layoff, camp change. He's back home in good old Iowa. And for Joaquim Silva, still at Evolução Thai, his teammate that's also on this card, Bruno Silva, obviously successfully making weight. And I was surprised that he was about the same size as Wellington Turman when I went back and watched the face-offs and the weigh-ins this morning. But for this fight, Matt, I'll kind of lead it off. I was split at the start of the week. We went with Tricky Ricky, the both of us. I'm having second thoughts about Neto BJJ in this one. I think with Joaquim Silva, he's the type of guy that puts on such a pace and he throws so darn hard. So it is really tough to try and call this one. I'm split. So what are you thinking here?
I'm going to stop you. Don't convince yourself that Joaquim Silva can set this crazy pace. Like, he can until he can't. He's going to set a decent pace until he does get tired. And for me, this fight really does come down to how often can Ricky Glenn just stay in the pocket without eating a big counter shot. And I do think Ricky Glenn's going to win this fight until he doesn't. And for me, I just don't think Joaquim Silva has enough power to put down a guy like Ricky Glenn. I think he might be able to hurt him on the off chance, but this is my problem. He has to hurt him early on in the fight to really take advantage and go after the finish, try to finish him. I like the volume of Ricky Glenn, so I'm going to stick with my pick, but this is a really close fight. And again, with Glenn moving up to 155, like there are some question marks around this.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously in the graph, you can see wasn't changing them up at 145.5. He weighed in successfully at lightweight. Looked like a big guy too, like big in terms of his height. We knew that coming in, but this should be a really interesting one. I mean, he has the 4-inch height advantage over Joaquim Silva. I'm going to switch the pick over to Silva, but again, it was a toss-up for me at the start of the week. It's still basically a toss-up in my mind right now, so it feels like one of those garbage fights to lose a pick than anything. But as far as betting, I'm not going with this one. Right?
No, this is a pop and popcorn fight, but I'm going to stick with a Ricky Glenn pick.
All right, Matt, we'll head into the chat really quick. Aiden Simo is just saying some nasty, nasty things about Joaquim Silva. John Kalachak is saying 7 a.m. and I'm joining in. Listen, John, we appreciate it. You're 2 hours behind us right now. We'll move into our next fight, Matt. We had a big time one going on at heavyweight. Josh Parisian taking on Roque Martinez. And we talked about this. This is like, can we have Dominic Cruz? No, we have Daniel Cormier at home. Is that it? Did I hit it? Did I get it right? But this is like, we want Ben Rothwell, Chris Barnett. Well, you've got Josh Parisian, Roque Martinez at home. This is pretty much that. I know Roque Martinez, he's really athletic heavyweight when you go back and watch a lot of the tape. But in the UFC, it just feels like we haven't really scratched the surface with him. Same can be said for Josh Parisian losing to Parker Porter by decision his last time out. He just didn't look good. But the same can be said against another classic 2008 heavyweight in Jared Vandera, his first time out. He looked terrible against Sergey Spivak, which is, again, easier said than done to look good against Spivak. Just ask what didn't Tai Tuivasa. Exactly. So Parisian, Roque Martinez, what are you thinking here?
This is a really weird fight. For Roque Martinez, I agree with you 100%. I feel like we're not going to see the best version of him even in the UFC. He almost hit his peak too early, and then he came to the UFC. And listen, I'm not here to tell you Roque Martinez is going to be a top 5 guy anyways, but I do feel like there was definitely a better fighter out there, and he became known to the wider audience, I guess, at the wrong part of his career. For Josh Parisian, here's the thing. You have all the talents that a lot of the great heavyweights do. Like, he has the movement. He's got a lot of the fun footwork and volume that you don't really see in the heavyweight division. But the fact that you lost the decision to Parker Porter really isn't all that impressive. Like, if you get outclassed by Parker Porter for Josh Parisian, and then Roque Martinez, when you lose the decision to Don'Tale Mace, just losing to guys like that by decision and really getting beaten soundly throughout 15 minutes, it's not great moving forward. Ever so slightly, I am going to pick Josh Parisian in this fight. I do like his ability to mix it up a little bit, and I do like his volume at the end of the day. For Roque Martinez, he has to land that one big shot, whereas for Parisian, I feel like he can just slowly chip away that classic Dwayne Casey quote. You gotta pound the rock and chip away at that boulder, and it's not going to break in one, but I do feel like the overall volume of Parisian should be able to win this fight.
I'm in agreement with you too, Matt. And as I'm hitting about 15% battery life, we're going to whip through these. So make sure you let us know in the comment section who you're going with, Matt. Our next one, we have Semelsberger taking on Khaos Williams. Again, this is one that I see a lot of support out there for Khaos Williams. If we head on over to the Instagrams, and we'll do that one quick just to incorporate it. But there is, again, a lot of support for Khaos Williams. 73% of the fans have Williams to get the win. Are you still with Williams here?
Stick with Khaos Williams. I feel like that power, like, you can't fluke that power. And I understand he has 2 very quick wins, and he did look great in his last fight out. But I feel like when you have a really disappointing performance like he had against Pagea's last time out, you're going to want to really prove a point. I feel like he will against Semelsberger.
I'm going to stick with it with Semelsberger because of the wrestling. And if he's able to use his range quite well, obviously unfortunate that we don't get his training partner in Tim Means on this card, but we'll move on. I've got Semelsberger. You've got Khaos Williams. But again, could Khaos Williams knock him out in the first round? 110%. We've seen Semelsberger get dropped before. Move into our next fight. We've got Kanako Murata taking on Virna Jandiroba. And again, with Jandiroba to the nth degree of a black belt. But Kanako Murata, I mean, what was she? National champion in judo, national champion in wrestling. I love the fight, but I'm keeping it with Jandiroba in this one.
It's really the wrestling of Murata versus the BJJ of Jandiroba. I do agree with you. I like Jandiroba in this fight, but I do think this is a really, really fun fight in the division.
It is a tricky one, and it should be a good one. And in our next one, we move up to light heavyweight. You've got Aleksa Camur taking on Nicolae Negumereanu. And Matt, For me, I'm sticking with it. Again, it's one of those ones where, listen, I got flack all week about this pick in the comments section. Do you know how bad Nicolai's record is? Do you know how bad he looked in his debut? Did you watch only the last 20 seconds of the video where I make the pick? Because I justified it that way. Obviously the record against the guys, the level of competition that he fought outside of the UFC was quite poor, and obviously he looked bad against Saperbeg Safarov, a guy who did not impress in the UFC. I mean, a guy who, and you got called out on the Link podcast that I was on earlier on this week about your Jean Vellante takes, because Matt, there's people that actually know Jean Vellante personally. You're gonna have to listen to the show, but for me, I am sticking with Negumereanu just based on the wrestling grappling aspect of it. I don't think it's a terrible underdog, but are you still with Camur here?
Really, the question is Aleksa Camur more than just a training partner? And I know we've had this conversation before, because it does feel like we're getting this kind of wave all of a sudden where there's a bunch of these fighters who it's like, oh, what is he known for? Well, he trains with X fighter who is at the top of the division. And for Aleksa Camur, I feel like he has more than just that of a ceiling. I feel like he can be his own fighter and not just known as the guy who used to train with Stipe. So I feel like Aleksa Camur will be able to kind of get back on track with this performance, but this is one of those fights that definitely could go either way.
I see over in the comment section, a lot of people just aren't focused on this fight, but I see Murnau Pandley saying, I'm seeing Arosa's pressure winning him the rounds. He's an awkward man at the fight coming up. And John Chai saying 13%. Listen, John Chai, I'm at 11% on my computer, so we're going to whip through. Next fight, we have Matt Brown taking on Dhiego Lima. And listen, Douglas lost recently, so anything can happen. But I've got Dhiego Lima in this fight. And if there were a question mark kicks parlay, Dhiego Lima is going to be on it.
I'm concerned about the durability of Matt Brown at this stage of his career. Listen, he's 40 years old. He's been getting into wild fights for a very long time. And at a certain point, your durability is going to go away. It pains me to do this, but I do have to pick Dhiego Lima in this fight.
Both of us with Dhiego Lima. Matt, we move into our next fight. We have Wellington Turman taking on Bruno Silva. And again, it is tricky because Silva's been off for a couple of years. Obviously, he had some USADA issues. Wellington Turman looked great in his debut against Carl Robertson. And then since then, he lost that fight to Robertson, and then he beats Marcus Perez, and then he loses his last time out and gets finished early. So I'm going with Bruno Silva in this one, but again, the time off does concern me a little bit.
If Bruno Silva looks like he did before the time off, then yeah, he should be able to win this fight. But again, it really does matter. Like, was he taking PEDs and now is he not on them? Because that's a really big factor. Like, if he was for the majority of his career and now he isn't, we might see a diminished version. I'm going to trust that Bruno Silva's skill set alone can beat Wellington Turman in this fight. But again, that is a really big question mark coming into this one.
All right, Matt, we move into our next fight. We have Julian Erosa taking on Seungwoo Choi. And Matt, for Seungwoo Choi, you know exactly how technical he is of a striker. From JHK this week, I was on the SCMP MMA show that you failed to make, but listen, John Franklin, he joined us over there. And for Seungwoo Choi, I mean, John had said, he was a kickboxing champion in South Korea, taking on Julian Erosa, the wonky striker, but really neat grappler as far as his jiu-jitsu is concerned. I know a lot of people kind of talking about the fact that if it does come down to the mat, Julian Erosa has a decided advantage. So what are you thinking here?
This is one of those fights where it's, again, how long can Seungwoo Choi last before he gets submitted? And I don't know if he's going to get himself into one of those positions to begin with. For me, I like the well-rounded game of Seungwoo Choi. But again, every Julian Erosa fight pretty much seems to come down to how much damage can he take before he wins by submission. It's kind of like the Glover Teixeira get dropped, end up in mount. It's one of those weird things that just seems to happen every single fight. I am going to stick with Seungwoo Choi because, again, Julian Erosa just seems to find himself in these fights all the time, where it's like Julian Erosa versus this prospect. And he's passed that test sometimes, he's failed that test sometimes. I just think Seungwoo Choi is a little bit one step too far.
And if you look at it, I mean, Julian Erosa's losses, you can snicker about Artem Lobov on The Ultimate Fighter, but he has lost to some really, really good fighters. Over in the comments section, A-Right hitting us up in the super chat saying, look at Craig being one with nature. All right, Matt, we've got 3 fights left, and I have 8% battery life. We're going to whip through them. Marlon Vera, Davey Grant in the rematch. Love the fight, but for me, Marlon Vera is a different fighter. I know Davey Grant's looked really good his last couple of times out, and he is also a different fighter, even at an advanced bantamweight, age. But for me, I'm going to go Chito Vera here.
It sucks that we can't just say, oh, Marlon's improved a lot since their first fight, because we wouldn't really be telling the whole story. Like, Davy Grant has also improved a crazy amount since their first fight. It's different kinds of evolution. Like Davy Grant's getting better at striking, don't get me wrong. And that's really impressive for a guy at his stage of his career to still improve. And I say at this stage of his career, like, he's a lot older than his record would suggest, but the fact that he is still improving is really impressive. I just feel like Marlon Vera, like, hey, you lose to Jose Aldo. That doesn't also mean you're going to lose to Davy Grant. I feel like we're taking one step too far back all of a sudden. And I feel like after Vera wins this fight, he should be fighting guys in the top 15 again.
Both of us going with Marlon Vera. Our co-main event, Alexei Oleinik, Sergey Spivak. Does Alexei come out? I mean, listen, he had a cool new haircut at the weigh-ins, but is that going to be enough to beat the polar bear?
I don't think it will be. Like, Carlos Felipe got a new haircut. That was enough to sway some judges. I just don't think it'll be enough for Oleinik. I like the overall grappling of Spivak. And listen, Oleinik's the type of guy who takes advantage of grapplers like Spivak. Like, Spivak's a big, sort of sloppier wrestler with decent grappling acumen of his own. But for Oleinik, he can take advantage of his opponents when they are sloppy. I just don't think at the age of 43, he's still going to be able to take advantage of those holes. And for Spivak, he's A, way bigger, and B, I just think his wrestling is going to be way too dominant this fight.
4% battery life, Matt. We have our main event, Shansung Jung, Dan Ige. This is another one that the odds are really, really close on, and I had it as a split type of fight. For me, I'm going to keep it with the Korean Zombie, but again, not a lot of confidence in that one.
Super fun fight. I'm really excited for this main event, like way more than any other fight on this card. I am going to stick with Dan Ige. Again, it comes down to durability for me, and the Korean Zombie's nickname might make it seem like he does have this great chin, but I don't think at this stage of his career, 34, he still has the same level of durability. I can be proven wrong in this fight, and this is the type of fight that could prove me wrong that way, but I feel like if Dan Ige does crack and does hit him hard, he is going to go down.
Matt, absolutely love this fight card. All sorts of great fights out there, and really appreciate everybody for tuning into the show over on Facebook, because we're live over there. You can find us at Fight Night Picks. You can also find us on the YouTubes. Fight Night. It's Fight Night Picks everywhere. It really is. So really looking forward to the card. If you're watching this after the fact, don't hesitate. Toss a like. I mean, listen, get me out of the woods so I can be back home for next week. But yeah, really looking forward to it. Appreciate everybody for spending the time on your Saturday morning, and enjoy the fights. As always, Matt, with Fight Night Picks, what do we say?
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, recorded in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, it's time for Fight Night Picks with your host,